A tender apple cake layered with apples, cinnamon, and walnuts.
Do you love to cook seasonally? Well, if you love fall and the flavors of fall, the flavors of apple and cinnamon, you're gonna love this apple cake. We are making a tender, delicious apple cake with fresh apples, the addition of some sour cream, and it's going to be so tender and perfect as a breakfast cake, a coffee cake, a snack cake, or an anytime cake. We're gonna start today by preheating our oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit and greasing a 9-inch spring-form pan. And then we're ready to assemble our ingredients. There are two parts to making this cake. The first is assembling the ingredients to make a crunchy, sweet topping for the cake. And that is done by using 3/4 of a cup of coarsely chopped walnuts and a mixture of 1/3 of a cup of light brown sugar, 1/3 of a cup of all-purpose flour, a teaspoon of cinnamon, and a 1/4 cup of unsalted butter that you've cut into pieces. And you want it to be cold because we're going to make a crumble topping with these ingredients. First, just take a fork or a whisk and combine the dry ingredients, the flour, the brown sugar, and the cinnamon, just to mix, get things started. Then add your butter that you've cut into pieces all at once. And you can get in there with your fingers. Of course, you have perfectly clean hands. And just squeeze the butter into the flour and sugar and cinnamon mixture. Now, I like to do this in 2 stages. One by just using the flour and sugar and cinnamon with the butter. And then I'm going to add the coarsely chopped walnuts and give them a little bit of a squeeze. And you're going to keep doing this until you have a crumbly topping. And you've incorporated most of the dry ingredients. Oh, it's going to be so yummy. Okay, and we're going to just set this aside. The star of this cake is apples, and I'm using a tart apple. It pairs very nicely with the sweetness of the cake. This is a Granny Smith apple, and I'm going to peel and slice thinly 2 apples. This probably takes the longest amount of time in the whole cake preparation process. You could leave the skin on if you wanted to, but I prefer the cake without the skin. To prepare our batter for the cake, I have mixed together 1 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour with 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking powder, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And I've just mixed that together to make sure that those ingredients are well distributed. Set that aside. And in this bowl, I have creamed together 1 cup of granulated sugar with 1 stick, 1/2 cup of unsalted butter. And it will take you about 2 to 3 minutes to get your butter and your sugar properly creamed. But once you're at that point, you're going to add 1 egg at a time, 2 large eggs in total. And I'm going to add in a teaspoon of vanilla. I'm going to mix all of that together. So I'm just going to beat each egg in until it's incorporated into the sugar and the butter mixture. Once you've incorporated the sugar, butter, and the eggs and the vanilla, it's time to add the dry ingredients. And we're going to do that by mixing the dry ingredients in with 1 cup of sour cream, alternating, starting with the flour mixture, then the sour cream, then the flour, then the sour cream, and then the flour. So we'll start by 1/3 of the flour going in, of the sour cream, you can see how the batter is lightening up. It's getting fluffier. Another 1/3 of the flour mixture. Now, if you have a stand mixer, you could use that. You could even just do this all by hand, but it'll take you a little longer. Now the rest of the sour cream. Yummy goodness. And now the rest of the flour mixture. And then just kind of combine so you have a nice, smooth, fluffy batter. To assemble the cake, we have a preheated 350-degree oven. We have a 9-inch springform pan that has been greased. And we're gonna start and we're gonna do layers. So first, there'll be 3 layers of batter, 2 layers of apples, and then just 1 addition of some chopped nuts. Then, after that's all set, we'll put on our crumble topping. So good. So I'm gonna start with 1/3 of the batter into the base of the springform pan. And spread that evenly in the pan. Now you remember that we divided the apples. So there's 1 layer for each of the apples. So now I'm going to take 1 set of the apple slices and I'm going to lay them into the pan, not just dump them in. I'm going to lay them in with some pattern. It's not that the pattern is important, it's just that you want to have your apples evenly distributed for the cake. That way, whenever you cut the cake, there's going to be an even amount of apple in every bite. So here it is, you can see. Next comes a layer of the coarsely chopped walnuts. And this is 1/4 cup that was reserved. Just a little extra crunch in the cake. Now the second third of the batter, spread that out. Now I'm going to add the rest of the apples. So the apples are distributed. Now the remainder of the batter. And spread it out. Oh, it's going to be delicious. You can see the batter in the pan. And now for the crumble topping. You can see it's very generous. Get a good amount. And we're ready to go into the 350-degree oven for 45 to 50 minutes until a toothpick inserted in the center comes out clean. My cake has taken 55 minutes for the toothpick inserted in the center to come out clean, but it looks delicious and smells even better. Let your cake cool for 10 minutes in the pan and then remove the ring and let it cool completely, at least an hour before you serve it. And there we have a delicious, tender apple cake, brimming with the flavors of fall.